Basically, if you do a post request to this now, you should get some response. There we go. You've got that ID. So today we'll be going through how to actually create an API from your MongoDB data. So you've got data, you've got collections, you've got documents, and I'm sure most of you know that MongoDB is a NoSQL database. So you've got documents, you've got collections, you've got all of that. And how do you convert that into an API? Basically, that's what we're going to be doing. And then from there, we will connect that to an app, a React Native app. But firstly, the reason why I've circled this section here is because we're going to start with MongoDB. And so you've got a user here who opens the app, makes a request for data, then the app is going to send the request to MongoDB. Then MongoDB will return the data in a JSON format. And then what we're going to be doing on the app, it's going to be a very simple app. On the app, we'll be translating that JSON to something that the user can easily read. So yeah, let's jump into it and start. We're going to start with MongoDB. All right, so I already have a cluster created here. Let me just go back to what you'd most likely be seeing. Okay, so I already have a cluster created. So MongoDB has got kind of like a way to walk you through how to create a cluster. You could just basically start with the free plan. The free plan should be able to get you through what we're going to be talking about. All right, so let's browse collections first of all. And as you can see, we don't have data. So most likely when you get into your cluster the first time, you're not going to have data. So we're just going to load some sample data, and the sample data is about 350 MB. Just go ahead and load the sample data. It's going to take a moment. I'm just going to maybe pause. Yeah, or maybe we should wait. Let's see how that goes. I'm thinking we should probably pause. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and pause, then I'll be back when this is done. All right, so our sample data has been loaded. So what's the next thing? I actually forgot to mention something. So with our data here, we are going to be using Postman to test. I just thought I should put that out there. All right, so we have our collection now. What's the next thing? Let's just go back and just make sure that it says sample data successfully loaded, and you could see the collections and everything. Right, the next thing we are going to do is to enable our data API right here on your left panel. We're going to enable our data API for our cluster. That's our main cluster. When you are initially creating when you initially log into MongoDB, to actually walk you through the process of doing that, right? So we'll go ahead, just go ahead and hit enable. Just wait for a moment. In the time being, probably we could go ahead, and if you go to web.postman.co, maybe some of you have got Postman installed. For this video, I was just using the web Postman, so you could go ahead and sign up, just sign in for Postman. Let's check if okay, so we're done. Immediately it will ask you to create an API key, so let's go ahead and create an API key. I'm just going to call it API Mongo DB YT, right? That's like YouTube. Go ahead and generate the key. Just go back here. All right, so you've got, if you just scroll down here, you notice that it will automatically pick your cluster, and then you could choose which database you want to pull from. So I'm just going to create, maybe I'll pull from the analytics database, and then it will pick all the collections in that database. So let's pick customers, right? So I am pretty a bit surprised that it was able to pick the API key. Most likely, most times it won't pick the API key. Probably there's some security settings that we need to set up somewhere. But basically this is it, right? That, like, this is it. This is done. So let's go ahead and copy this. You could try and click this. For some people it will work, and for some it will ask you to disable your an ad blocker on your browser. So go ahead and click import. When you click import, just drop your command there and it will pick the whole thing. Now a few things to point out here. Let me just go to the data API. I want to point out a few things. Alright, we're just gonna get back to that. But basically what I wanted to show you was these different commands. So this is for finding data, and then if you're going to insert data, you're going to say something like insert one, right? So let's go to headers, and it's already put our API key, so we don't need to change anything. Basically, if you do a post request to this now, you should get some response. There we go. You've got that ID. Now let's just go back to our database and confirm that we have that. I think we were in customers, yeah. And what was the ID? The ID is 62A68. Let's see. Yeah, so this is pretty much the one that we're pulling, right? So that's the ID that we're pulling. We might want to play around a bit here. Let's try and pull the name for this ID. Could we? Alright, we'll try to pull the name. Alright, it seems there's something that we're missing. Oh, okay, so we basically could change this to name, and then let's try to do that again, and we should get the name of, yeah, there we go. So we get both the ID and the name, and there we go. So we're basically, in our app, we're going to be getting this Elizabeth Ray. That's what we're going to be displaying in our app. All right, so now I'm going to show you how I connected the MongoDB API that we just created to our React Native app, and it's a very simple app, just text view that we are going to be pulling from our MongoDB. All right, so I have the code, and I'm going to put the code on GitHub. Don't mind me, I was searching for some zooming to help you guys, but I don't know if we can close this. Yeah, all right, there we go. So it's a very simple, code, just one piece of code. If you remember, we were fetching from this endpoint, and we're doing a post request, and we've got our API there, and we define our customers and our database and our cluster there. So here I've started with the name. If you remember, we started with an ID, but I've started with the name. Actually, you know what, maybe we could sort of like change this to ID. Let's just pull the ID first of all, and then when you come to here, this is where we're going to be getting the response, and we are printing it here, so we're pulling it from here. So let me just change everywhere. So this is where we're pulling the document in our response. Let me just show you where I'm making reference to this. So this is the document, so we are breaking it down that way. So we are saying document.id, document.name for us to pull whatever we're getting in that JSON. Okay. So yeah, we change that to ID. Let's change that to ID as well. Change that to ID so that when we're printing, we can sort of like see exactly what we're printing. And when we run that, you can see that we get our ID printed, which is what we were getting here. All right, now let's just turn this back to name, and let's see if we can actually pull the name. Get a const there, and we change that to name as well. Just make sure that your API key is correct, your collection is correct, and everything is correct. Let me save that. Oops, looks like we're getting an error somewhere. Somewhere we didn't change. Where is it? It looks like. Right, so there we go. We have our name printed out. Yeah, that's all I wanted to show you guys. Pretty simple. You could create an API out of your data and then use that API to power your app. So this is a simple React native app which I'm going to be putting up for you on GitHub. And you can sort of like just download it and play around with it. So yeah, that will be about it for this video. I hope you learned something. And guys, let me just make something pretty clear. It's not safe for you to keep your API keys exposed like this. Of course, in some later videos, we are going to be looking at some ways to really keep your API keys secure, and your endpoints and all of that really secure. But this was just for us to see how we can retrieve data from an API that we just created on our data in MongoDB. So yeah, please, there are safer ways of keeping your API keys and like keeping it as exposed as this. All right, so I hope you learned something, guys, and if you found this video useful, leave a like, subscribe, share, and also leave a comment if you have a question or need clarity on anything. All the links are going to be in the description. You can find all the links there. All right, guys, see you in the next one. Cheers.